Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. You know where I am. You can tell from the music in the background. You can tell from the background chatter. You know where I am, my local dive bar. Working hard. So, this is going to be a very, I'm not going to be talking about any controversial topics or anything. Today's my Thanksgiving gift to you. I will be doing 3 reviews of crowdfunded books that I've recently reread or recently received. The first one I'm going to go over is Aaron Lopresti's. Oh, before I get into these reviews, and these are just quick mini reviews. They're not really in-depth. They're just short and sweet while I do my work here. And before I get into that, though, this Saturday, Statistical Zero will be doing a show called The Chit. The chat is on hiatus, so he's going to give us a Thanksgiving treat on Saturday with his show, The Chit. He's been joking about it for a while, about doing a show, so we're going to be doing that. I've told him, hey, the debut of The Chit, I can't wait for it, and hey, I'll be his wingman, so I'll be there with him when he does his show. And I'm expecting a big turnout. So let's all make sure that if you're watching this, please, I'll be putting stats. I'll be putting them in the chat and in the links or in the description. So if you haven't, go over and subscribe to his channel. Hit that bell for notification. That way you can check out the Chit debut episode this Saturday. And while you're at it, go and hit that like button and subscribe to my channel after you're done watching this. Remember, you don't get anything that you don't ask for. So now we're going to get into the reviews. The first review is Aaron Lopresti's Wraith of God Blood Hunters. I've been eagerly waiting for this one. The first one, very well done. Second one did not disappoint. Aaron knows how to draw the ladies. Here's the big thing. He knows how to draw beautiful ladies, but he doesn't draw them like a slutty or provocative way. Well, you could say some of the way he draws, sometimes he draws women in a provocative manner, but it's not done in he doesn't draw them like sluts and whores. How's that? Okay. Very well done. What I particularly liked was he increased the interaction and development of the relationship between Esther and the Wraith. Esther, in the first book, she was like an asset, but really wasn't kind of like he was saying, his Alfred or his secretary. In this story, she really goes out to prove her worth. Happy Thanksgiving to you too. But this time, he really got into the relationship between them and building upon that, where she is proving herself to the Wraith, and the Wraith's not looking at her as necessarily a burden. Greatly appreciated it. Aaron properly put Bible verses or scripture in at the right points to help push the purpose of the story and who the Wraith is. Thought that was very nice, and it's what I would expect from the character, not from Aaron. Here's the key thing. It's not one of those, we all know Aaron is a Catholic and has a strong belief in God and the church. But he's looking at it as in the Wraith's character. not his personal beliefs. Him being a God-fearing man does help him greatly in how he wants the Wraith portrayed. So I'm looking forward to the next book. This book here, he was fighting a vampire, and he had the females or the brides, and very well done. I really enjoy that. It had this very strong Hammer feel to it. So if you're a fan of the old Hammer films, then you'd greatly appreciate how he did with the women all in white, the white nightgowns, and the bosoms full, and just very well without them. Too many guys are like, when they drew, you can see Rini addressed it perfectly when she was explaining drawing women's boobs and how they lay on the body. And Aaron has a strong understanding of that with how he draws his women. Too many people, they don't, and they just draw them like they have beach balls glued to their chest. Aaron and Rini are not those types of artists, and it shows through. So, what was also made the book enjoyable was you got additional stories, not just the Wraith of God story. The Garbage Man story, I like that one a lot too. It was a very artistically very well executed. It was entertaining. It was humorous. Again, the art was top notch with Aaron. And what I like about the Garbage Man is the way he does the Garbage Man. The Garbage Man, now this is a positive thing, can be, and so far has been, a stagnant character. The stories you could say, are formulaic or repetitious, but that's a good thing. With today's day and age, what's ruining comic books is the characters have to evolve. No. From the characters' inception up until a decade ago, they were stagnant and they were successful. Now, when comic books started to fail, was when they started having to do, well, he's been this way for the last 40 years, we gotta change him. No. If it worked that way, then you keep that character that way. So, but no, so far I like the fact that the character has the story, it's just, monster of the week kind of thing, if you will. I just really do enjoy it. I enjoyed it. So I'm looking for it. The one drawback, and this is my personal taste, okay? This is not a assault on the execution, is I'm not a huge fan of Dan Lawless's colors, and I felt that with the Garbage Man, it muddied down the artwork. And when you look on the campaign, the colors are vibrant, but for whatever reason, when they're printed, they're muddied down. So that was kind of a detractor to me. So the other story, and I've been up front from the beginning, was the nightclub. I'm kind of like, I wasn't crazy about the nightclub. It was, I guess you could say the thing about the nightclub, it was a standard Marvel formulaic storytelling. You have your characters fighting each other over a misunderstanding, and then in the end, oh well, I'm sorry about that. Okay, no cool thing, bro. I liked the introduction of the Trunk. I liked him a lot. An elephant, animorph type character. Just enjoyed how he was drawn. Enjoyed how he handled the approach for him, with him being like a dimensional jumping character who's now stranded in our world. But that was really it. didn't really care for any of the other characters. Even the overall story, like I said, it was just the story, the dialogue. It was simple, basic. It just really wasn't all that interesting. But then, like I said, I'm right off the bat, when Aaron was saying about the nightclub, I was like, eh. So, I don't know. We'll just jump ahead of that. And then we got Kit Carter. And remember, Kit Carter was included in this as a stretch goal if he hit 100K. And he hit that. And what he did was he already had like about 8 to 10 of those pages already done, because he had them as like one-off joke pages. I think it was like for his website. So he was basically just, he threw them in there and put like 2 or 3 more pages to conclude it. And I loved it. It was clean, nice introduction of the characters, wanting more. So I enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to Kit Carter, the current campaign. That one, he's doing it in oversized, like the old school Marvel graphic novels, like the Death of Captain Marvel. Debut of the New Mutants was done as a graphic novel, so I'm really looking forward to that. So, but no, overall, very happy with it that Kit Carter was included. I'm not gonna lie, I haven't backed it yet, but once I do back it, I'm gonna be spending some money, because I want the tier that gives you the oversized book, that's a hardbound book. You'll get the softbound book, and then you get the ash can with all the artwork or the preliminary drawings. I'm going to be getting that. I'll also be getting a t-shirt, and I'll be getting a poster when I do back it. So I'm definitely going to be dumping some money on that one. So, but no, it was just really, really enjoyable. Marv, as we know him, as we all joke and call it, the Phil Diaz monkey, very good. And again, it's a complete throwback to that retros 50s sci-fi, which I do enjoy. I never really saw a whole bunch as a kid, but now when I see it, I go like, oh, that looks so cool. So the next book I want to address and do a mini review of is Rainey's Fiendish 2. I really did enjoy it. Now here's the analogy, okay? The first one was good, well executed, and introducing the characters. Now here's the thing, is that when I explain this to you, you have to understand, I liked Fiendish 2 better than Fiendish 1. So how do I describe Fiendish 2 for you guys? Think of it this way. Remember how when we had Jurassic Park, Steven Spielberg was so concerned with the raptors, and he just wanted to make them believable and that they could walk and be in the same environment as your characters, okay? And then after he did the first one, as he said when he was explaining the second movie, was, in the first one, I got the raptors to walk. In the second one, I'm going to make them dance. Okay? Now, overall, yes, there's a lot of criticism that's well-deserved about the second Jurassic Park movie being bad. But if you look at just the raptors and how he did achieve what he wanted with the raptors in the second one, okay? That's how I'm looking at it with Rainey, with Fiendish 1 to Fiendish 2. She's definitely been working on this for a long period of time. She's done a lot of videos about it, how world building is so important to her, and it shows through. There's the one character, Yeoman. She's a young girl, and she's part of a slave race. And Rainey very well shows this in the story itself. Now, in the back of the book, there's a species page explaining yeoman species, or Yomi, explains her species. But she does such a good job in the story that when you read that, you didn't even need to read that page to get the sense that yes, she's comes from a slave race, and primarily the women of that slave race are used as sex slaves. And you get that right off the bat with her being present for the funeral pyre of her old master, who didn't treat her as a sex slave, that treated her as part of the family, and how she doesn't want that for herself. She doesn't want to have a future of being a sex slave, so she runs away. And then when we are introduced to Ragna, she right away looks at her and immediately thinks, what's this fuck toy doing here? Is this your little plaything now? Very derogatory to her, treats her like trash. And again, you didn't even need to read in the back of the book about Yomi's people to see how there's a stereotypical bias towards her people because of that. So I thought it was very well done. And what was in the second book, there is so much well done moving of the story, while at the same time having development of the characters. So you have conflict within the storytelling, that verbally you have action in this dialogue, even though you only have one fight scene, if you will. Okay, because you still get that. The perfect example is when Casimir, right off the bat, is like, well, if you're going to be traveling with me, you got to learn how to fight, and puts her through the paces of like, okay, well, you suck with this weapon. Okay, you're not too bad with this weapon. You need to practice more with this one. And I like that right off the bat, that Casimir looks at her as a person and not as a sex toy. Where again, when Ragna is introduced to our band of characters, very first thing is you can tell, because Rainey did one panel, okay, one panel, no dialogue, but she just uses one panel when she has when he has Casimir and Ragna looking at each other, that you then have them flashing back to see that they were childhood friends and that they mean a lot to each other. And it comes down to, okay, is this sexual or is this family? My interpretation was, this is a long lost brother and sister reuniting, because right off the bat she doesn't have to worry. She's not worried about the fact that, like, oh, I'm going to hurt your feelings because you have your little fuck toy with you. And I'm not. It's kind of what she says actually in the book. It's not really me paraphrasing anything. But no, I really did enjoy how, just with the dialogue, was very engaging, and I look at it and I'm like, okay, this is very well done. She's really been thinking about it for a really long time, with the world building, with the development of the characters, so that she can then properly articulate these characters to you in the story. And she has grown so much, and obviously I mean Rainey, from her first campaign to her second campaign, that in some ways, like I said, how you use the Steven Spielberg analogy, her first book was just to get you engaged with these characters. Now that she's got you engaged with these characters and she's got you that they're believable to you, now she's going to teach you how these characters dance. And I thought it was very well done. So, and if I'm not doing a great job of explaining it, I apologize. But I mean, I hope you understand the analogy I'm using to describe the improvement from book 1 to book 2. I really do enjoy it. She's very imaginative and very smart with her world building, that she can put details in visually to really get you immersed in this world that they live. Perfect example is when you enter into Casimir's hut. It looks like a hut that people actually are going to be living in and do live in. So many times when you see a story and they don't put a lot of thought into it, or they're struggling, or they may not put the effort into really putting those details in to make it look like this is a lived-in hut, or a real, or almost like it was actually like a photograph that she took it from. When I say that, not how it was, how do I mean it? It's the details, the stuff she has hanging on the walls, the slippers that just sit and discarded at the end of the bed. Those little details that make it feel like it's a lived-in environment and not like a set from a movie studio. Okay, we think about what made Star Wars so good compared to other science fiction was everything looked used up and gritty. So it looked like it'd been there for a long period of time. Whereas Star Trek, it looked like a set. It looked like a cheap set. So that's how Reenie does. Reenie's Star Wars, where other people are doing original series Star Trek with a few props. Say, oh, that must be someone's office. Oh, that must be a hospital. But she makes it look like it's a real place. And that is a skill that I struggle with, and I know a lot of artists struggle with. She's not struggling. She puts a lot of hard work into it, but she's gotten to the point that I would say for her to do this stuff, it's essentially breathing to her. That's how I look at it. Okay? So, again, Reenie did a great job. Now, the last one, I would definitely check out her 2.5, which is available. I will include that in the description. Last one I want to go over, and I'm going to go over it really quick because I'm already heading towards overtime here with my videos, is Clint Holinsky's Superiors. I got it this week. I read it, and when I was done reading it, I started flipping through it again. And that is always a good sign for me about a book that I really like, is if I want to flip through it again or reread it again immediately after I've already read it. There's some that I've read, and I read it once and then that's it. Fatal is a perfect example of one of those books where I backed it, I read it, and it's like, oh, I'll get back to it. I'm going to look at that again, and I still haven't. Okay? Reenie isn't doing that. She makes, or I should say, Clint Holinsky didn't do that with Superiors. Now, what's nice is he has one of the book options he had was the one called Early Visions. With Early Visions, it's important that you read the inside cover. Okay, the reason why I say it's important that you read the inside cover is because with the inside cover, he explains how the story has been, he had different versions or different attempts at doing it to not nail down the story. And so with him, he just included as an extra book, and it was really nice. Here's the biggest thing, okay? The Superiors book, how I looked at it, it was a love letter to George Perez. You had a ton of characters, even characters that weren't needed for the story are there. A ton of characters. And it had the multiverse jumping of characters, which is a standard DC trope that George Perez liked because it gave him the ability to draw as many characters as possible. So you could have like the Justice League and the JSA team-ups, which he loved to do because he wanted to be like, oh, I get to draw all these characters that are so cool. That's what Clint did, was he went through all that. And so you got to see that in the early versions, and then when you go into the main book of the Superiors. And then lastly, he had a Who's Who book, which again, I was really happy about. He actually completely had me sold on backing this book when he said he had a Who's Who. Where I think Clint made a mistake was he hadn't drawn any Who's Who entries when he started the campaign. He really should have had 1 or 2 entries completely drawn up, and he could have had them posted within the campaign to help sell it. I think it would have been in his benefit to have done that. Also, now I am a huge fan of the Who's Who. I started getting the Who's Who because the Who's Who was coming out at the same time as Crisis or Infinite Earths, and we all know how George had literally every character. Now, I can't say every character because as a huge DC fan, I've gone through each issue of the Who's Who and every single issue of the Crisis or Infinite Earths multiple times, and there were some characters that were left out of the Crisis or Infinite Earths. But because I've gone through the Who's Who so much, I've picked up on some things. And the way they always did the Who's Who was give us a big splash shot of the superhero, give us a headshot of what they look like in their real life and what their secret identity looks like, if we're able to. And then give us like an action shot of them, like fighting a bad guy or lifting up a car or something. And then a lot of times what they do is they would have like texture cut over the rest, making up the rest of the background. And I don't know if it's because Clint was like pressed on time, but it started out where he was doing that, but then because he was pressed on time, he just stopped doing it and just did an action shot of the heroes. Personally, I wish Clint had gone through, and I wish he'd spent an extra week, maybe 2 weeks, to put something into each background, even if it was just like a cross-hatching pattern or a lined pattern. How George would do that, like, here, this is going to be a black area. So like George would do something like this, where he would have like, okay, so this is so Kiro is your action shot, and then you'd had, let's say this is a picture of Kiro without his helmet, so you see what it looks like, okay? And then what he'd do is, let me get some ink on this. He would then go and he would then have, in the background, he'd just have some lines, and he'd have some cross-hatching, just to add that extra piece of detail to help frame up the character. Or even how George would do it. And let's say this was it. Okay, let's say it was the Miles here. Okay, and he wanted to frame it up, and he'd have a box like that to help frame up the image. Even if Clint had done stuff like that, I think would have been gone a great deal in the end result of the Who's Who pages. Now bear in mind, you could say I'm nitpicking, you could, but it's those little things that made the original Who's Who stand out and were so impactful and so more engaging than the Who's Great in 88. Okay, who's the update of Who's Great in 88. They weren't, the artists weren't doing that, whether they were cutting back on they were cutting back on the page rate for doing the pages, or whether the editors weren't pushing the artists, I don't know. But I just remember how, like, what made those small things that made the original Who's Who so impactful and so great weren't there in Who's Great in '88. And '88 was the last time they did a Who's Who, and I'm assuming they did it. They stopped doing it because the sales weren't there, and the how they turned out weren't as great. So, but I would still get the. I don't regret getting the back. I got 3 books with a tier that I backed for Clint. So I hope Clint continues those Who's Who, even if he includes them as extras in the back of each book, whereas he's got the Blue Bombshell, the Maidens of Mayhem he's doing right now. Even if he did Who's Who entries, like 3 Who's Who entries in the back of the book, like they used to do with the DC annuals. They would do that where they'd have, after the success of Who's Who, they would have like, okay, here's a annual, and in the back of the annual, you'd have like 3 or 4 Who's Who entries. They did that a lot with a lot of different annuals in DC back then, which was really neat. And hey, Andy Smith does the Marvel version. Nothing says Clint can't do that with the Who's Who version with his books. So, but hey guys, I appreciate your time. Happy Thanksgiving. Please, I've included Aaron, Reenie's, and Clint's current campaigns in the description. So at the very least, give those guys, take a look at their campaigns and check out their books. You will not regret backing them with the quality of the story and art that you're getting from these guys. But remember, overall, just always remember, especially this time of year can be depressing for some people. It can be challenging and it can be stressful. But like all things in life, you just take it all one dot at a time.